Hey guys, my name is Ram and welcome to this session on Git. Right, so guys, sorry for the delay. There was some technical issues I had to resolve, but that's all right. That's all past us. And for all of those who stayed here, I'm gonna give you guys a special treat at the end of the session. All right, so now we will start with the session, but before that I do need some things from you guys, right? Even though we've delayed a little bit, we do still need to do a few things that we normally do. Now we need to do a mic check sort of thing, so you guys need to tell me if you guys can see me properly and if you guys can see the screen properly. And if these two things are in order, we can go ahead and proceed with basically the session. So let me just go ahead, sorry. And while you guys are giving me the mic check, let me go ahead and tell you guys about Great Learning. All right, so at Great Learning, we have come with something called Great Learning Academy, which is something I would highly recommend for all of you. And a lot of you who've already, basically seen my sessions and all of our sessions know about this. So this is where you guys need to come and check out all the different courses. Now, remember, these courses are completely free and there are more than 80 plus courses that you guys can enroll for without paying a single cent or a single paisa. Now, these courses are really well made and they're catered towards the beginners so that they can start their careers in something. So that's why we really focus on selecting a career path for you guys. So once you land on the website by heading on to greatlearning.in/academy, you can just click on select career path, and that will take you to the option of choosing a specific career path for yourself. Now in the popular careers, you can go ahead and check out software developer, data scientist, AI engineer, digital marketer. But if you want something else, you can always choose your own career path. And if you don't want to choose a career path and you just want to see individual courses, what you can do is you can always just scroll down and you'll find the individual courses also over here. Wait, one second, guys. Sorry, scroll up. Yeah, so if you just scroll up, you'll find the individual courses over here. Now, the individual courses are something that you guys might want to try out too, because you may not want to check out a career path, but you may want to check out a specific course. So you can go ahead and see what kind of course you want. Newly launched courses, IT and software, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. Now, if you do not want to do any of that, you can always go ahead and try and type it over here because it's easy for you to type it and you can find whatever is relevant to you. So this is for those people who don't have the fiscal means to go ahead and pay for those very expensive programs. You can just go ahead and do all of this for free. We came up with this initiative to help people out, especially during these uncertain times, such as, the pandemic and a lot of people losing their jobs and a lot of freshers not being able to find jobs. So I'm pretty sure this is going to help a lot of you. So go ahead and check it out. It's greatlearning.in/academy, or you can go ahead and download the app on your mobile phone. Now that I've done this, let me just do a quick check and see if you guys can see me, hear me, and see the screen properly. So just give me a second, guys. My secondary screen is off. It's taking a little bit of time to wake up. All right. Sorry guys, you had to wait for this. It's just that we do need to make this check before we begin the session. Otherwise, I can keep on rambling on and then you guys cannot hear me. That is not great. Let me see. All right, so there are a lot of people and they are saying that they can hear me and see me. Okay, so see the screen. That is the important thing. You can hear me and see the screen. So that is important. All right. So let us begin this session. Okay. And Guys, so we're going to be learning about Git. So the most important thing over here that what I want you guys to do is ask questions in the chat, but please don't spam the chat. I've seen that a lot of you guys are spamming the chat. That really disturbs a lot of other people who want to genuinely ask questions, and it gets buried in all the spam. So please don't do that, because I just want this to be live interactive chat where everyone can answer each other's questions and I can try to answer your questions. Okay, so this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to teach you guys about Git, and then we're going to slowly in chunks take those questions also that you guys are going to ask me. So let us begin this. So this is what we're going to be covering in the agenda. So we're going to do what is version control system, why do we need it, what are the different version control systems available, what is Git. We'll be learning how to get started with Git, Git installation, Git basic commands, etc. All right, you guys can follow me in the practical because it's very easy. So let's start. So what is version control, right? So let me start off with an example for what is version control. So imagine you are a student or you are a student in a college or a school. Now you have been given the responsibility of doing a project under a guide or a professor. Now this is your final semester, so this project carries a lot of grade. Like, it's a big grade and a lot of credits. It has a lot of credits and it contributes to a major portion of your grade this semester. So you have to be very careful and very delicate with the project you're doing. Now you go ahead and you start creating a project, and this project is a machine learning algorithm that basically helps you to clear an image, to make an image a lot more clear with a certain algorithm. Now the thing is that you have made it and it works totally fine, but the thing is it has 80% efficacy. That means that you can only do this perfectly for 80% of the images. 20% of the images, it does not work that well. So you are totally fine with it. Your professor said that, yeah, 80% is good, but you want to increase it because your professor also said that if you have a 90% efficacy, you're going to get a higher grade, and you're looking for that, obviously, because the credit counts a lot. So what you decide to do is, one day before the final review where your professor will judge your project, you decide to change your code because you feel like you're confident enough to change it into 90% efficacy. So you start writing in the same file and you come up with a new piece of code. You've written for 12 hours and it's just the review 6 hours away, and you run the code and it runs fine. You're happy. But then when you run it again, it does not work because something changed and it's not working anymore. So the issue you can see here is that the code is not running anymore and there's only very little time left to show the professor. So he doesn't have his original file because he overwrote on his old file, and now he has to show it to the professor. Now, when he shows it to the professor, it obviously does not run. He explains his story, the professor understands, but he still does not see a running project. So he's not happy, and he does not even give him the grade for 80% efficacy. He gives him a lower grade. Now, this all could have been avoided if he did a very simple thing, the student. If he had a backup, and this is pretty common sense with anyone who's doing a project, always have a backup, right? So in this particular vein, right, if he had kept a backup, it would have been a lot better for him. So imagine if he had two different folders, one folder for the project 80% efficacy and one folder where he starts to experiment the same way 12 hours before, and he sees that he still gets an error. But this time he can at least show the 80% thing to his professor and talk to him about the 90% thing he did but failed. So now the professor will be happy and still give him a good grade, and even greater than what he would have gotten just 80% efficacy. So you guys can see here how it was good for him to have a backup or a different version of the code, right? So this principle of controlling your versions of your software code is very important. And that's why we try to introduce it in a lot of different places. So let's talk about it. So these days, right, when you're making software, we don't make it in such a way that, we write it in a single particular notepad file and then we just try to deploy it. It's made in small chunks. You don't write it in one single, piece of file, and you basically try to write it in multiple different files and in different chunks so that you can easily control it, you can easily manage it, and a lot more different things. right? So that's why you have smaller pieces of code, but you have a lot more versions of it, because you these days a lot of people using Scrum and Agile, and in that way the philosophy is to develop pieces of software in regular in regular cycles with a lot of feedback, so you keep on changing that code also. So that's why you have a lot of different versions of the code. So since you have a lot of different versions of the code, there is a very big need to organize all of that code. Because imagine if you did the same thing what that student did in your system, create different folders, and in those different folders you are basically storing your code, right? But when you're working in a company and you have so many different versions of the code, it becomes very tedious to do so manually, right? And this is where the principle of version control comes in, right? It's the practice of managing and storing different versions of a source code, right? So we make use of version control tools for this purpose, and I'll talk about them when we are discussing them. So this is especially the case with larger companies that have multiple projects and multiple teams working within it. So let's take an example of Google or Amazon, right? They have like multiple teams. They might have 3 teams, and those 3 teams might be working on 3 different projects. And those 3 different projects will have slightly different variations here and there every sprint. So there'll be vast amount of versions of software created, and that would make it very, very difficult for people to manage all of it if they did not have any help for it. And that's why we try to make use of version control systems, that is a VCS, or you can always call it a source code management tool also, right? And it meshes very well with the whole ideology of software development. So if you want to use it with any place in software development, you can do so. And it automates very well, and it integrates with a lot of different tools very well, right? So we'll talk about one of the most popular tools, that is Git. And once we get to it, you guys will understand a lot more. If I talk about the benefits of version control system, you have a lot more control over the code. You control what happens to it, who touches it, or anything, right? There's a layer of security where you have a track of who's made what change, and where the code is stored and what is the security patches being applied and everything. And there's a fast delivery thing going on over here. If you have a version control system, it becomes a part of your software development pipeline, and it makes the whole process a lot more automated and makes it fast to deliver stuff. And availability, so it's basically saying that once you store your code in the cloud-based service or the repository that is online, you can access it from anywhere in the world, granted you have internet access. So these are the benefits of having a version control system. Now, what are the different version control systems available to us? We have things like AWS code commit, Git, Mercurial. Then you have a lot more other things like Azure repo. You have a lot of different version control systems available, but today we're going to be concentrating on Git. And guys, if you didn't understand exactly what a version control system is, that's totally fine. When I'm explaining to you what Git is, right, you guys gonna get a better idea. But so far, if you guys have had any questions, please let me know in the chat. So this is when I'm just gonna go ahead and open my chat next to me so that I can help you guys with all the different questions. All right, so I have my chat open. Let's see. If you guys have any question. All right, so we have a first question. I don't know how relevant it is. So someone's talking about how they're unable to generate an SSH key. So I mean, SSH key for what? You have to extrapolate. It's not that simple, right? So if you can tell me more in detail, then maybe I can help you out. Okay, we have another question by Tushar saying, sir, web development ki live stream kab hogi? So you guys can always head on to Great Learning Academy, and if you scroll down, you'll see all the different live sessions we are having. You can register for them. Just click on view all live sessions and you'll see all the live sessions. You guys can see my live session over here, and for next week we're going to go ahead and schedule them, and then you guys can register for them, so you guys get a notification whenever that live session happens. So let me come back and let's see other questions. So we have Dronal asking, sir, can you boost speed of software by installing Linux? So not really, if to answer your question in short, right? So what do you mean? You want to boost the speed of software? Are you talking about increasing the efficiency of how the software works? Then just because you're using Linux does not mean the software is going to be a lot more efficient. It really depends on how well the developer has optimized that software for a particular operating system. Let's say that a particular developer has written a software for Windows itself. That particular software will not run very well on Linux because it's not designed to do so. So it really depends on how the developer has developed the software. And there's a lot of quirks to handle. So you cannot put a blanket statement saying that Linux will help boost your software. All right. So yeah, its answer is no. So Aspiring Engine is saying Great Learning is doing great by providing every lecture free of cost. We love it. We love talking to you guys, and we love that you guys love watching our sessions. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have Bhumish Bhurida. Sorry, I mispronounced the name. This course is linked with coding and Great Learning. Okay, so one distinction for all of you guys, this thing that I'm teaching you is not a course. This is a live session class. So this is just a class. It's a free class where I'm just telling you guys stuff. Now, if you want to do a course with a certification, head on to Great Learning. Okay, this is where you're going to get all your course that you want to check out. All right, and that's where you get the certification. So I'm teaching you guys Git so that anyone who wants to learn Git can start learning Git. Okay, so with that out of the way, just want to tell you guys, I didn't see a lot of questions, but I want you guys to go ahead and ask me questions. I really do mean it. If you guys have any doubt, even if it's the most stupid thing, right? Go ahead and ask it. I won't tell you that I already taught it. I might tell you, but I'll still answer it. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about what Git is. So Git's full form, it is a global information tracker. So that pretty much gives away what it does. It's a global information tracker. It tracks information. Okay. Now we'll get into the details of that later. Let's talk about other things. It's an open source tool, which means that it follows the philosophy of being a free software that can be distributed anywhere commercially and used commercially, so it's basically a free software, right? Anyone can use it. And that's what open source generally means, but it also means that the source code is available for other people to use and redistribute it. Okay, now nowadays Git is in hands of Microsoft, but it generally was developed with this idea. So it was made back in 2005 by Linus Torvald and a lot of other developers who weren't really satisfied with what was given to them at that time, especially the free resources. And he thought that he could come up with something better, and he did. He's a genius. I really like him. All of us should really pray to him. No, I'm just kidding. But still, he's really awesome, and he helped make Git as well as Linux. And Git turned out to be really awesome. It was really loved by everyone. And after a few years, it became an industry standard. People stopped using the paid tools that were available back and started to use Git because it was a lot better. It was faster. It was cheaper because you didn't have to pay anything for it. And people really started to like it and became an industry standard. Now everyone makes use of Git. Okay, so what is Git and how does it work? So before I show this diagram to you, let me just go to features. One sec, guys. Yeah, so Git features. So let me check out the Git features over here. So first we have system compatibility. So when we're talking about Git, right, we are talking about two things. So I do have to explain the diagram to you. All right. So when we're talking about Git, we are not just talking about Git. We have to talk about GitHub as well. So you have to understand that GitHub and Git are two separate identities, right? So they're two separate entities that work together. Just hold on a second, guys. There's a disturbance in the back. I need to resolve that. Sorry for the disturbance, guys. Let me go ahead and restart. Now, when you're talking about Git, you never use Git alone, right? You use it with something that is a storage and manager. And in this case, it's GitHub. So the responsibility of Git is basically to track changes made to your code. So you can imagine Git as a local tool. So You will use Git on your laptop or on your system to track changes made to your code, right? The allergies are acting up. Getting a lot of sneezes today. Yeah. So Git is something that works locally by tracking all the changes that you made to your software or whatever software you tell Git to, track. Now, once you've done that and once you've saved any new changes and created new versions on your laptop, what do you do with them? You have to store them and manage them, right? Somehow. So there is something called GitHub. It is a cloud-based service that basically allows you to store all of your code and its different versions in one place. So it makes it very easy. You don't have to rent your own server and you don't have to pay anyone anything, right? Unless you want to try out the enterprise experience. So GitHub allows you to store code for free and it allows you to basically do a lot of different things that we will talk about. So let's take an example. Let's say there is a company and there is one project and there are two developers working on that one project. So the developer one starts writing the code. Now the developer two can't start right now because he has dependency on developer one. That means that only once developer one is done, that developer two can start working. So he starts writing code on his system and he starts tracking the changes made on that code using Git, right? So once he's done that, once he's saved the changes, he goes ahead and pushes that code onto GitHub. So that means a version 1.0 of the software has been uploaded to GitHub, right? And now that the version 1.0 has been uploaded, developer 2 can start working with it. But he resides in a different part of the country because of work from home. So how does he get the code? Does the developer 1 mail it to developer 2? No, there is no need for that. What the developer 2 can do is he can access the same place where version 1.0 of the software was stored, and he can take it and download it onto his own system. This process is called cloning. Right, so he clones the project onto his own system, or he pulls the latest version of the code onto his own system using Git. Now, once he gets it, he does his own changes. He adds another function, he adds another security patch. And once he's done, he tracks all of the changes using Git, which is locally on his system. And once he's done with that, he goes ahead and pushes the new version of the code onto GitHub, the same place where developer 1 had stored the code. So now we have two versions, one from developer 1, that is 1.0, and one from the developer 2, that's the 1.5 version, right? So our latest version 1.5, which is based on 1.0, but we have both the things on GitHub. So you guys can see what role GitHub plays over here. It's like a storage device where you're storing stuff, whereas Git is responsible for tracking all the changes and saving those changes locally on your system. I hope that distinction was clear for you guys. Okay, now let's move on and let's talk about the features, because that's how I explain it to you. When I talk about system compatibility, so Git can work with GitHub, but it can work with other particular storage and managing services also. There are other tools and like Bitbucket and whatnot, and you can even use them with Git. So it has very good compatibility. And if you don't want to use GitHub, you have other options as well. Now, collaboration is a major thing about Git and GitHub, because how people can work together. So people work in big teams generally and team project. So when you want them to work together, Git is a very good place to do so. There is an option of reviewing your code before making it the main code. So that is called reviewing a pull request. We'll talk about that a little later, but understand how that increases the collaboration and increases the quality assurance thing. Okay, so collaboration allows for people to make work on the same piece of code a lot more easier, especially on Git. Now, speed is a very important factor here, because you want to develop and deliver your code very fast. And Git is just amazing at delivering code. If you wanted to integrate it to some kind of automation tool, it will do so and it will deliver it very fast using triggers and whatnot. But if you want to clone a particular project onto your system, or if you want to pull whatever new code has been written onto your system on an existing project, then it becomes very fast. It is the fastest tool out there, one of the fastest tool out there, and it can replicate code very fast. Then distributed system and reliability, which basically means that it is on a distributed system. So if one computer say goes down, that does not mean your code will stop being accessible. It's very reliable to use GitHub, and you can use it whenever you want. Okay. And then security aspect, again, as I talked to you guys, how security is important for Git and how you are able to implement it by knowing who's making the changes and you only authorize certain people to make changes and etc. So these are the features of Git. Now let's talk about the life cycle of Git. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and check if you guys have any more questions also. So I'm seeing that you guys don't have any more new questions. Maybe my chat is slow. Let me just reload the chat. Yes, so there are a few questions. My chat wasn't working, thank God. All right. Okay, so Bhumish is asking, please explain shortly what VCS is. Version control system. It basically allows you to store your code and manage your code. Okay, different versions of it. Okay, so Adil is asking how to upload a new project on GitHub instead of creating. So you can do that very easily. I'll tell you guys how to, okay? You can use Git for that purpose. Okay, so we have Abhishek saying, sir, how do I copy code from files to our IDE? Very simple. Open your integrated development environment. There will be an option to import a project. You can go ahead and do it through that, right? Or if you want to do a very manual and tedious task, you can copy and paste, but I would not recommend that. So Tushar saying, sir, I've already registered, but there are no classes of web development. Don't worry, Tushar. Maybe right now it's not there, but in future we do plan to have a web development class in Great Learning Academy live sessions. The codes that are available on GitHub files. So how do we properly copy that code into our IDE? Now that's an interesting question that I've seen a lot of times. So if you want to go ahead and take someone else's repository that is available on GitHub, there is an option for you to do so. That is using the git clone command, right? So what you need to do is in your IDE, you'll always have an option with GitHub. So if it's Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ, you'll always have a GitHub plugin. So all you guys need to do there is you just need to go ahead and copy the URL of the Git repository and use the command git clone in your plugin that is available in your IDE, right? And it will clone the project for you. Akash is saying, I want to make my own Iron Man suit. Can you help me out? I don't think I can help you out, but I look forward for you to do that. All right. Bhumish is asking what is the kernel. I would direct you to my what is a Linux video because I do talk about kernel there. Talking about a kernel. Okay, we have seen Akash has answered it. Thank you so much, Akash. What is GitLab? It is a more automated oriented Git software. It is not as related to Git and GitHub as you would think. Okay. All right. So with that, I've answered all the questions so far. Now let us continue with what is Git. Okay, so we have half an hour more for this session, right? So this is what I'm gonna tell you guys. We're gonna do a little bit of theory, but then we'll straight get to practicals because I know a lot of you just want that. The thing is that I want you to understand the theory first and foremost because fundamentals are very important. If you just miss out on the fundamentals, then it will be very difficult for you to understand anything. So let us begin with the life cycle. So I told you how Git and GitHub works in conjunction with each other, right? So you basically use Git to track your changes on your local system. And then once that is done, you push it onto GitHub. But how does that thing happen? How does Git know how to track which software, right? So there is a whole process that happens on your laptop, and that is going to be a part of your life cycle of the code. So let's imagine you want to write a software, right? So what is the first thing you do? First thing you do is create a project folder, right? So the process of you creating a project folder and thinking in your mind that this is the folder where I'll be doing all the work related to the project. That is our first step. That is assigning a working directory. So you have to assign a working directory, which is basically assigning a project folder. You can think of directory as a folder itself. Now, once you've done that, you move on to the next step, that is initialization. So in the process of initialization, what you're doing is you're telling Git, listen Git, this folder that I've assigned in my mind, I want you to think of it as a local repository. So there is a command called git init, and which basically initializes any folder or directory that you want. And once it's been initialized, Git knows that this is a local repository. What is a local repository? Repositories are basically classifications of storage. Like if you want to store certain files that are all related to each other for a project, you store it in a repository. On GitHub, you will go ahead and store all of your file on a repository. So if it was a food development app, you'll create a food development repository and you'll store all of your code there. And if you wanted to create let's say e-commerce website, then you create an e-commerce repository and store all of your relevant code over there. It's like a folder again. Like if I wanted to simplify it, right? But repositories have a lot more properties than a folder, but you can think of it like a folder, right? So now that we've assigned our own working directory and we have told Git to understand that this is a local repository in the initialization step, our next step is to actually start working with the code. You can go ahead and import any previous code in for your software, or you can write some new code. And once you've done that, so you've technically made changes. If you've imported new code or added new code or made any changes to a presently existing code, that is counted as a change. So you go ahead and stage that particular code. So in staging, Git basically understands and starts to track all of these files. And once it starts to track all of these files, it understands all the changes you've made so far. So you can go ahead and stage only certain files. So let's say in your working directory, you have 10 files, and out of the 10 files, you have 3 files that you have staged. That means that Git will not track the other 7 files. So now you can only push these 3 files in the future onto GitHub, right? You cannot push the other 7 files. So staging is important. It tells Git that these are the files that I want to be working with and pushing to GitHub later in future. So once you've staged your files, Git starts tracking all the changes you've made to the file. So it understands you've added 4 new lines of code and whatnot. And once it does that, you can go ahead to the next step, which is basically committing the changes you've made. So committing is a very important process, because in committing, you're telling Git to save the changes you made. It creates a clear demarcation between one version of your code with another version. So commits are what define a particular version. So in a commit, you are telling that in 1.0 of the software 1.0, I made 5 changes. And in 1.2, there were 10 changes. So this is how each of these particular files differ. Whenever you're comparing 2 files, you'll be comparing them through the commits that you've made. Once you've committed all the changes, you can go ahead and push it onto GitHub. So this is the Git Life Cycle. And once you push it to GitHub, you can pull it, and the whole life cycle does not repeat. You just repeat from the staging part again, because you've already assigned a working directory and initialized it. So once you pull new code, maybe from developer 2, you go straight on to staging. Understand? Because you already have the folder and it's already been assigned as a local repository. And the whole cycle repeats until, end of project or end of life. Okay, so this is the life cycle of code within Git. If you guys have any questions, I'll just stay open for 2 minutes because there's a little bit more complicated topic. I hope that if you guys understood, we can move on. If you didn't, it's all right. Any stupid question, I'll try to answer it. Okay, so Mayur Pradeshi is asking, can you repeat once version control system? So, okay. Understand that Git is a version control system, guys. Okay, it is a tool that allows us to manage different versions or control different versions. A version control system will allow you to control different versions of a software. If your software has version 1 with 10 changes and version 2 with new 12 changes, it will store it. It will store both of these versions separately. And it will allow you to compare both of these versions. It will allow you to manage both of these versions. It will allow you to do a lot of different things with these versions. That's what a version control system is. Now, when we're talking about Git, how it is a version control system, Git and GitHub together are that version control system. Alone they are not. Okay, you take Git and you take GitHub and they're together version control system. And any distinction, let me clear out Git versus GitHub. Git is the local tool that we use. GitHub is the cloud-based service that we use to store the code. You don't store the code with Git itself. You store the code using GitHub. But to track the changes, to push and to pull the code from GitHub, you have to make use of Git. Okay, I hope that was clear. Now we can go ahead and get started with GitHub. But still, I'm just going to wait for a few more seconds to see if you guys have any more questions. So we have Rajnikant asking, I want to make a chitty robot. Can I use kernel? I cannot answer your question. I'm going to move on. So we have another question, Manpreet Kaur asking, if you host game app on GitHub and how? Yes, you can do that. So the thing is, you cannot host it on GitHub. You can host the code files of your game on GitHub. Okay. So the thing is, GitHub is only used to store code. But if you want to host it, that means that code needs to be running as a software. To run it as a software, you need a lot of other things involved in the process. You might need some frameworks, you might need some libraries, you might need some tools. So you need to do that on a specific server, right? So you need to go rent a server to host any game, okay, if it's a multiplayer game. And for that, you need to go to AWS or any cloud service. Okay, so Aditya is asking, please explain initialization once more. So guys, initialization is basically, okay, so when I'm doing the practical, you guys will understand better, but let me just tell you once more. So first process in our Git Life Cycle is assigning a working directory. So that is just me going and creating a folder. So I'll just go ahead and create a new folder over here, call it project. And this project folder is basically my assigning. This is the first step that is over. Okay, so we have created the first step, that is assigning a working directory. So in my mind, I've assigned this as a working directory, but I need to tell Git also that this is my working directory. To tell Git that this is my working directory, I need to use a command called git init. So I will go ahead and type in here git init, and you guys can see it says initialize empty repository of Git in this particular location. So it now tells Git that this particular file / project is a local repository. Now this is important because Git needs to know whether it's a repository or not. Only then can it act on it. Okay, now that we've done it, you can even see a .git file over here. Okay, so now our second step is done. So this is initialization. Okay, so we have Fatima saying local storage means from our system to GitHub, and the whole process before committing is occurring at our system. Yes, exactly right. So all the process before, including committing, is happening on our system. Only the pushing the code to GitHub happens on GitHub. Even pushing happens on your system, but final is having it on GitHub. Okay, I'll explain the process. Okay, so first let's go ahead and download it, because I think if you do it practically, it will be a lot more easier, because Git is really easy, and it's just that starting there's a lot of confusion. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna head and download Git. So just type in download Git. So the first link you see, git-scm, you can go ahead and click on that and downloads Git, and you can do it for Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. You can click on download 2.1, download 2.1.2.31.3 for Windows, and it will download it for you. Now guys, the reason I'm not going to download it and run it in front of you is because it really messes up my installation that I already have on my system. Okay, now generally I do want to show these things to you guys, but the reason I'm not showing this to you is because it will mess up my installation. As you guys can see, I already have it here. So I'm going to let it be. Now, don't worry. If you guys have an issue with this, you can go ahead and watch my Git tutorial video. I explain how to do that in that. Okay. So you won't have a problem, right? But for the live session, I'm not going to do it. And it's a little longer process. But don't worry, it's very simple. Just leave everything default. There'll be a lot of options for you to configure, but just leave them default as it is. And just keep on continuing. Okay, once you kept on continuing, what you will see is that there is a shortcut. So every time you right click now, you'll have the option of Git GUI and Git Bash, right? So what is Git GUI and Git Bash? So the thing is that Git can work either of two ways. So you can access Git either using the graphical user interface. So that means it will open a window, it will have buttons and everything. So you can start using it in this way, or you can do it in a much cooler way. That is Git Bash. So Git Bash is basically a terminal that opens up. Okay. Now, this is our way to install Git. So as you can see, I can type in comments over here, and I even have a graphical user interface where I can go ahead and clone, commit, push, pull stuff. Okay. But I don't use the graphical user interface much because I don't think it's as cool and it doesn't make me look like a hacker. So this makes me look like a hacker. That's why I use this. Okay. Now there's one thing, if you generally, when you're a software developer, this is not what you would be using. You would have you'll have, let's say, do I have VS Code right now? Okay, I don't have VS Code right now, but if you have Visual Studio Code or if you have IntelliJ, right, then you'll basically be downloading a plugin with it. So even if you use Sublime, right, even with Sublime, you'll have a plugin for GitHub. So you don't have to git bash or something. You'll just have a terminal already open in the integrated development environment itself. You can use it from there. Okay, and if you have an IDE, no need to download it separately. Just get a plugin from there. If you're working as a software developer. Now, Git and GitHub is something that you can use without being a software developer. Okay, so that is one awesome thing about it. Okay, so once you've downloaded Git, that's great. Now we have Git with us, which is our local tool. Now we need to go ahead and configure our GitHub. So make sure to head on to github.com. Okay, so let me just open the main page. So once you head to github.com, you can go ahead and click on sign up. Okay. So once you click on sign up, you're going to get the option to, give your username, email, password, verify account, blah, blah, blah. And once you've done that, this is what it will look like. Well, not exactly this. You won't have any new repositories if you're new, and you won't have any of these notifications. It will be kind of empty, but don't worry. Let me explain this. Now, guys, one thing about GitHub, I have made a video on GitHub, which we will be releasing soon enough. So please be sure to subscribe. It is a very comprehensive tutorial about GitHub itself. I explain everything: pull requests, issues, marketplace, explore, every option that is available over here. It's going to be releasing in a few days. Don't worry about it. Okay. So now, once you've come on to GitHub, right, you have one option that is to create a repository. So let me show you the definition of a repository. First, we'll click on new. And you guys will see a repository contains all the project files. So it is where you'll keep all the relevant files together in one place. Okay. So it's kind of like a folder, but you have a lot more properties with it. So this is our GitHub and this is our Git. Okay. Now let's try this out. So I know a lot of you had a confusion with lifecycle of the code within Git. So let's actually try to do this. Okay. Once we do this, it will be a lot more easier for us to understand all of it. So let me try this all over again. So let me delete this project folder. It's giving me an error because I opened git bash in it. Let's try it again, and it's working now. Let me go ahead and click new and we'll create a folder. Let me call this GL live. So we've done the first step, that is I have assigned this particular folder in my mind as my place to work. That is our first step, assigning a working directory. Now next step comes initialization. So you can just go to any folder, click on git bash. So git bash is a terminal that allows you to execute git commands. Now you will notice that the address over here is desktop G Live. The reason that is because I opened git bash over here. If I open git bash somewhere else, right? If I go to one of my own folders and downloads folder and I git bash over there, then the address would be different for that. Okay. Sorry guys. Okay. So now we have our terminal, right? So we can start doing the steps of this. So our between initialization and staging, we needed to have code over here. So first let me initialize the code. So git init. And once you do git init, you have initialized the empty git repository in C, and you can go ahead. So now we have initialized our repository. So we have done initializing our repository, which is telling Git that this is the folder we want you to work on. So you can see initialize empty repository in G Live. So we have done that. Now what we will do is we'll start writing our code. So let me go ahead and clear the screen. One second, guys. Yeah, so we're going to start writing our code. So let me go ahead and use something called Nano. Nano is an editor. Don't worry, it's a terminal based editor. It's like Notepad only. and I'm going to go ahead and create my new file, index.html. So I'm going to write some code over here. So this is just some, all right, so we have written some code. Now we're going to go ahead and close this because we have written some basic code. Now I'm going to save this using Control O. So this is the name I want for my file. Control O basically asks you to save it. So which name you want to save it with. I'm going to press enter. It tells you written 4 lines. I'm going to Control X. Okay. So Nano is just an editor, right? It's an editor that is based out of terminal. Now what we're going to do, guys, is we are going to go ahead and do the next step, that is staging. So staging is us telling Git to track index.html. To do that, you can use the command git add. Git add is used to stage stuff. If I do git add dot, right, it tells Git to stage every file within my current working directory. Or if I want only index.html, then I can do that also. To showcase this, let me go ahead and create a file called hello.txt just for fun. And I'm going to do git add index.html. Okay. Now we have staged our index.html file. So if I do a git status, you guys can see in untracked files, you have only hello.txt because it's not being tracked by Git, right? That's fine with us. We don't want it to be tracked, but we have new file index.html, which is being tracked. So this is what happens when you specify only certain files to be tracked. So only this can be pushed onto GitHub right now. So to push it onto GitHub, we need to save the changes we made so far, right? And the way we saw that was git status. Git status gives you whether everything is finished or not, okay? It gives you the status of what is happening. Now what we need to do is we need to commit our changes. The changes were, we added a few lines into our index.html. So I'm going to go ahead and commit it using the command called git commit -m. Then I'm going to add a message. So the -m is for a message. You need to add a message always, and it needs to be relevant in message. So our relevant message here is added a index.html. Okay, I'm going to press enter, and you guys are going to see that it will save this commit with the message added index.html. One file was changed, 4 insertions were made. Okay. All right. Now if I do a git status, it should only show me that untracked file. All right. Nothing has to be committed. So great. So the file that we want to commit, index.html, is being committed, and we can go ahead and push it. Now, a few things over here. Now that we have completed most of our process, we need to push it to GitHub. How do we push it to GitHub? The thing is that our Git over here has not been connected to our GitHub over here. So we need to connect both of them. So we have already created a local repository. We need to create a remote repository. So let me go ahead and click on new over here. That's how you create repositories, or you can go ahead and click on the plus and click on new repository. Okay. And for people asking, how do I put my project? You can click on import repositories also, if you want to include an already existing project. But now what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call this, something mystical, dungeon repo. All right, because mine is a little bit of a, fantastical theme. So I'm going to write dungeon repo. The spelling is wrong, but I'm going to move on. Description. So here we've given the name, and it verifies if it's okay to give or not. Now we're going to go and type description. This has the website that will be my future fantastical website. Okay. Now I'm going to move on. Now I have the option to either make it public or private. Public means anyone can see, but nobody can change it. Private means no one else can see unless you want them to see, and no one can change it unless you want them to change it. Okay, so I'm going to leave it public so that you guys can see it out, check it out. Now I'm going to come back. Let's make this easier. make this fun repo so that you guys can easily use it. Now you can go ahead and add few things, but we're gonna leave these for now. I'm gonna click on create repository. So it's as simple as that, creating a repository, just give it a name, give it a description, and boom, done. So this is a dashboard for repository. You can see fun repo, and this is my address for fun repo. Now I'm gonna go ahead and copy the Git address over here, copy it, and I'm gonna come back. Now I have my address of a remote repository. I'm going to connect my remote repository to my local repository. To do that, I'm going to use a command called git remote add origin. Okay, so this is basically helping me adding the origin. I'm going to paste the website. I'm going to press enter. So now it has been added. So what I did was git remote add. Okay, so we have added the remote origin. That is this. Now we can go ahead and push to this particular origin. So I'm going to use the command called git push origin master. So what is this command? So this is basically pushing all the committed files to origin, that is our remote repository that we added as a remote, from master. So master is a branch. Okay, I'm not going to go into the branching concepts for now. It's a little bit more confusing. Just understand it is the main branch where all your main code is there. Okay, and I'm going to press enter. As you guys can see, it is sending the code and it is gone from your main branch onto, from master branch onto origin. So it has pushed my code to this. So if I come back and if I refresh, you guys can see my index.html over here with one commit that has been made 4 minutes ago. If I click on index.html over here, you guys can see my code. All right. Yeah. Isn't it magical? Okay. Now let's come back and you guys can see my commit message over here. If I click on the commit message, you guys can see the changes I've made. So these are the changes I've made. I can write a review over here if I want. Okay. Now let's come back. Now let me go ahead and make another commit to this and then I'm gonna push that commit. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and make another change into our index.html file. What we're gonna do over here is we're gonna have a paragraph tag and say, hey guys, I'm sorry. All right, so I added one line over here. Let me go ahead and save this and exit it. Now if I do a git status to see what all has been done on my branch, so we can see that changes have been not staged for commit. So index.html file is not staged. It's not being tracked for all the changes. So and hello.txt has not, it's completely untracked, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a command called git add and dot this time. Okay, I'm using dot because I want all the files to be staged and we're going to be pushing hello.txt also onto GitHub. I'm going to press enter. And if I do a git status now, you guys can see 2 new files, changes need to be committed. So I'm going to go ahead and use the command git commit -m quotations added hello.txt and added p tag to index.html. Okay, it has to be a very relevant, no need to add dates and everything. All the dates and histories stored with the commit itself, but you need to add like a relevant thing. All right, so now that is done, 2 files changed, 1 insertion was made. Okay, now that is done, if I do a git status, everything is clean. Now we can go ahead and push it. So git push origin master. You guys can see I'm not adding the origin again because the origin was already added. I'm going to press enter and you guys can see it has pushed the files. Yeah, so it's done. I'm going to come back. I'm going to refresh and we're going to see 2 commits. Hello.txt has been added. It's an empty file. And if you come back, and if you go to index.html, you guys can see the p tag is here now. Okay, so this is how we work with it, guys. You guys can see the commit and you can go ahead and click on 2 commits to see the commit history. You can even check the variations, what was changed. So over here, you guys can see this was added. So it's in green. In the previous commit, a lot more things were added. Sorry, this is not the previous commit. This is hello.txt. Okay, cool. So that is that. Now let's come back and let's answer a few questions, because we've come to the end of our session. I've explained to you guys most of the things. Now there's just a few more things I'll explain before I go to questions. Let's imagine that we are not in GL Live. So I'm going to come out of GL Live and I'm going to create a folder called temporary, and I'm going to head inside temporary folder. And now temporary folder is not my working directory, but I'm going to initialize it with Git. So we can have more than one local repositories. So Git init. Now temp is another local repository. Now within this local repository, what I want to do is I want to download this particular project. Let's imagine we are in a different system altogether. Okay. And we have a folder there. So how do we do it? In that case, you don't even need to initialize your repository. What you do is you go to the repository that you want to. So this is the URL of my repository, and somebody comes to my repository over here, that is fun repo with fun in R capitalized. You just go to my code and copy this. Okay, just copy it or download the zip. Once you copy it, come back, and what is this? And then you need to use a command called git clone. So it clones the repository. I'm going to paste the address and I'm going to press enter. So it's cloning my fun repo over here. If I do an ls, you guys can see fun repo. And if you head on to fun repo, you guys can see all my files. Yeah, hello.txt and index.html, and they're the latest version also. Okay, so this is your cloning process. All right, guys, that was it for our session today. Now I'm going to end the session by doing a Q&A with you guys for the next 5 minutes. Okay, so let's talk to the chat. Let me open the chat. Let's see what all questions you guys have asked. Adil is saying initialization can be done with GUI. Yeah, you can use graphical user interface. I just use Bash. Link for Nano Editor download. So Nano Editor, it generally comes with your Bash terminal. If you don't have it, if you're on Linux, then it's very simple, especially Ubuntu. This is only for Ubuntu, guys. apt install Nano if you don't have it already. Okay. And with Bash terminal on Git, you'll automatically have it. Yeah, so we have Hashish Kandrar saying just downloaded GitHub Desktop. You don't need Git Bash. Yep, you can go ahead and download GitHub Desktop also. It makes things a lot more easier. I'm just telling you guys the fundamentals. As you start using this particular tool, you'll understand the tips and tricks. You don't even have to use Git Bash for any purpose. Right? You can go ahead and use a Visual Studio Code's own plugins that are available. You don't even have to use GitHub Desktop for that purpose. Right? It really depends on your requirements, guys. If you're a person who's not into coding as much and you just want to upload files, you can do that. You know, you don't even need to upload any code file. As you guys can see, I put hello.txt over here. So this is just a general for everyone, not just for software developers. Anyone can use GitHub. You can be an English writer. You can be working as a teacher, or you can be software developer, you can be a data scientist. Anyone can use it for any purpose. Well, whatever purpose is defined over here. Somebody said you have done an excellent work. Thank you, Jivas. Okay, so since you've given me praise, I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Thank you, Jiva Gasundaram N. Yes, nailed it. All right, so we have Shakib Khan asking, can you deliver one session of such one project, like full website design via VS Code? Sure, in future we can think of this. I'll definitely try to help you guys out. Now, if you want a deployment project where you actually deploy a website, I would recommend you guys go ahead and visit my Jenkins tutorial. So Jenkins is an automation tool used in software development industry. And you guys can go ahead and check this out. Jenkins tutorial in Hindi. I tell you guys how to use Git in that. Okay, just type in Jenkins, great learning, or see the pink thumbnail one. So this is the one. Cool. I think you can just check out my DevOps tutorial, but I don't know if everyone will be interested in that. Okay, so we have a question from Marshall Benz. Let's just say that I want to copy all the code from one branch to another. How do I do it? I don't want to clone it to local, then paste it to another. How can I do from master to main branch? All right. So listen, your master and your main branch are basically the same branch, okay? Unless you're talking about your master branch on GitHub and main branch over here. So let me just see your question once more. I want to copy all the code from one branch to another. Okay. So this is for people who already know about branches, but you guys can imagine branches as just twigs coming out of this. So master is where we have our main code, but let's say there is a developer too who wants to add a little bit more code to it. And let's say we don't want him to do it directly from master branch. We ask him to create a new branch altogether. So he creates a new branch called FIA. Not a validated object name. Right, this is not a correct folder. All right. So you guys can see we have changed to fun A. So in fun A, you guys will see there's hello.txt and index.html. So basically it's copied everything from master branch onto fun A. So whenever you create a new branch, whatever branch you currently are on will have all of its content copied onto the new branch. That's why we have it copied over here. But if we go create a new file in fun A, let's say that we created a function a.html. Right, and I staged it, I committed it. Okay, now I check. If I go back, I'm in master, and if I do an ls, you guys can't see fun functional A over here anymore, because in fun A is a totally different branch. You can start doing stuff you want to. And once you want to take all of your changes from fun A and merge it to master, all you need to do is git merge fun A. All right. And if I do an ls, you guys can see functional A over here. So I hope that answered your question, Marshall. If you want to copy all the code from one branch to another, how to do it? You use a merge command. Now there is no special merge commit happening over here. It's doing a fast forward. There's a little bit more complicated, guys. If you don't understand, you can leave it. You can go ahead and watch my GitHub tutorial. I explain all of this very well in there. Okay. So fast forward is when your previous, branch has the same content already. There's no changes made into it. Then it does not need to make a commit. What is a fork in GitHub? Very good question, Manas. So a fork is basically if you come and fork my website, right? If you come to this address and you fork over here, what you're doing is you're copying my repo and you're creating it as your own. Let me give you guys an example of a fork I did. So okay, over here, I've come over here. I've done 2 forks over here, guys. Yeah. So here I have Swarm Prom and Express Card. So this is an e-learning website that I forked from someone. So what I did was I just went to their repository and I forked it from here. I cannot fork it because I already forked it. So when I forked it, it took all of their code and created a new repository on my account and, added the code. So if I go to my repositories, you guys can see Express Cart is over here. And this is with my name, okay, instead of this guy's name. So it is Remy code /express card and it is not Mr. Wharton /express card because I forked it from his own repository. Okay, so forking is basically copying a repository from someone else's account onto your account. There are some limitations and, if it's visible, I think you can fork it. Cool. But you cannot, if you make any changes, it's going to be on your own repository. And be careful of the licenses that are being used. If there is an MIT license, then you can commercially use it also. But if there is no MIT license, you'd rather be careful of how you use the code. Okay, just a disclaimer. Tushar is asking to us, take a session in Hindi. I have taken a lot of sessions of Git on Hindi. Just type in Great Learning Git Hindi. You'll find a session that I've taken in Hindi. Okay. Abhishek said you won't skip a dumb question, but you're skipping mine. What is your question, Abhishek? I'm sorry because there's a lot of questions I might have skipped. Let me just scroll up. Abhishek, I cannot find a question. Okay, you said, you asked, is it difficult? No, this is not at all difficult. It's very easy. I would highly recommend you get started. If this session is going to be uploaded as a video, so if you have any doubts, just watch it again. Okay, very simple to use, and I think it'll be very helpful for you guys. Whatever career you're using, you can use Git in a lot of places. So what is API project? I don't know what you're talking about. You have to extrapolate. Which API project? Are you talking about API in general? So Arpita is asking a pretty good question. Is there any limitation of memory while uploading an existing project? Now, to be honest with you guys, I have not uploaded very large scale projects, organization level projects onto GitHub. But with what I've seen so far, you don't have this kind of issue. What I would recommend for you is to Google that. I don't have it by hearted with me. And since I don't have experience with large scale level codes, like organization level scale codes, I cannot answer that question, properly. Okay, so Jay Fatima is asking, what is a pull request? All right, so when you have different branches, right? So when you have two branches, fun A and master, right? So let's say that you've written your new code in fun A and you've pushed it onto GitHub, right? So let me do this. And instead of pushing it from master, I'm going to do it from fun A. You guys can see fun A has had pushed recent changes. So basically I have had a new branch also added over here, and there is new change also added. It should reflect over here. It's not showing, but pull request is basically when you're working in a hierarchy in a company, right? What happens is that you cannot make your changes as the final changes in the master branch in GitHub. In GitHub, master branch is the final change, and nobody changes it directly. You always have changes made on a branch and you merge those branches. But to even merge the branch, right, somebody has to review that. So if you are a junior developer, a senior developer will go ahead and read your branch. You'll read your changes and approve it or not. So let's say new code. Obviously, you'll need to write a much more comprehensive pull request. So a pull request is you basically asking them, can you merge your branch with the master branch? And then somebody will come ahead and review your thing. So see, this is the commit. So somebody will come, they'll review what changes you've made. So the changes you've made is you added a function a.html. If they are fine, they'll click on review changes and basically go ahead and agree with the merge pull request. And over here, I'm going to click on merge pull request and confirm the merge as a senior developer, and it's all right. So pull request has been successfully merged. If we come up, go back to code, we'll see function A in our master branch. And that's why you have function A over here. So you remember, in master branch, you never have any final things done. Okay. What is a Vim editor? It is another editor which is like Nano that you use on Bash terminal. Can we upload files other than other files in GitHub? Yes, you can, Abhishek. Don't worry, you can. All right. All right, guys. So, okay, one last question, and then we have to end the session because I have extended a little bit more than normal. Can we merge two GitHub accounts? As far as I know, no, but you can go ahead and check it out. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this session because you guys are asking a lot of fun questions, and it really helped me help you guys out. Okay. So again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Ram, and I'll see you guys in my next session.